Hey, what's going on, everybody? I bet y'all have been wondering, where have I been and what have I been doing? But before I get into all of that, y'all know how this works. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. Give me a thumbs up in the chat or spam your favorite emoji or just anything to let me know how do I sound and can I be heard. All right, cool. Everybody can hear me. So, man, like what? How long have I been gone so far? Probably at least a couple of months. If everybody remembers from the last time I did a live stream, it was from my garage at my house, and I was pretty much telling everybody that I was in the process of trying to move. Well, I have successfully sold my home, so I'm now officially homeless. But thankfully, I have an older sister that loves me enough to be able to put me up in her house while I'm currently transitioning to the new house. Because I do have I do have the purchasing process of my new home, and I'm hoping that I'm actually going to be able to close this coming the 30th for at the end of this month. Now I'm going to be a little bit busy after that weekend because I do have APA World Qualifiers that I have to attend. So I probably won't be able to start moving in until a little bit later after that. We're saying that there's a little bit of problem of out of syncness. I think I can fix that. Let me just try one little thing. Give me just a second. Let's see here. I'm pretty sure I know where that out of syncness is coming from. Oh, I do apologize, everybody. Let's see here. There's going to be a way for me to fix this. All right. I'm going to go blank for just a moment. Be right back. It'll be a black screen. This. And then we're going to switch to this. This and this. So, oh, geez. Y'all should have heard me during all of that, but should be able to fix this, I think. Let's see here. Oh, you got to love the on the fly editing, and I am not set up the way I would like to be for the current setup for the current setup that I have. So let's try this. That's a little bit better. And actually, I know exactly what the problem is here. Let's go to here and here. Say okay, and then do. Oh, that's still kind of messed up. Let's see here. I guess I should have left it the way it was, but I should no longer be out of sync. But you can see I look a little stretched here. Let's see, how can I fix this? If I do this, what is? Oh, I bet I know what the problem is. Let's see here. Okay, that all looks good. No, that looks fine. So what is the problem? There we go. I have the resolution set correctly. This is weird. I'm actually perplexed as to why it's doing this. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and leave it like this because I don't have time to try to keep messing with this. So the idea is supposed to be that by the 30th this month, I'm going to be closed on my new home. So hopefully I'll be able to share some pictures with the layout of what my new home is going to look like. Specifically speaking, that I am now in a two-story. I will now be in a two-story home, And the upstairs loft, which is the game room, measures about 20 by 18, which is going to be plenty of space for me to be able to put a 9-foot table in there. And so the problem is going to be is that I got to try to find a company that can actually deliver and install a 9-foot table up a flight of stairs. So there is one company that I talked to here in the Round Rock, Texas area, but they did indicate that it could be 6 to 8 months before I actually might be able to see the table. I do have to schedule an appointment with them so that way I can actually place my order with them, and then who knows if I'm going to be able to see the table until sometime next calendar year. In the meantime, though, I could probably still at least try to be able to produce some sort of content at the local pool hall that I'll be hanging out at. But then, until then, I have stuff like this that we're going to be doing here. In case anybody's wondering, I had my coach, Demetrius from MNPoolBootCamp, reach out to me, and he actually had an idea that he wanted to share and asked for my assistance to be able to help reach his idea out to a broader audience. So that's what we're going to be here to do. So I'm going to take a moment here to switch over to Demetrius. Give me just a second. So here's Demetrius, and while Demetrius is talking, I'm going to try to get my camera set back up because the camera isn't working. But Demetrius, go ahead and take it away.
Any chat comments, so if there are responses in the chat, please let me know what's relevant. But I'm assuming that I will know some of you guys in the chat, so thanks for tuning in, whether I know you or not. Demetrius here, Minnesota Pool Boot Camp. So I'm just going to dive in. What's on my mind is a little bit about 8-ball. I had a student ask me a question. So Jeff, if you're in the audience, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the question. We train together, and I should mention that for people that what is MNPoolBootCamp? I do pool training. I'm in Minnesota, but I do three-day intensive training. So I work with people all over the country. My last student last week was from Sydney, Australia, which is very cool. He was stateside for the DNEA. So don't be put off if you're not geographically close to me. These 3-day sessions are serious enough that, we can schedule that on the calendar and make it work. If you want to spend 3 days really taking apart your pool game and figuring out what it takes to build the pieces to play a higher level of pool, that's what I do. So I had a student ask me, when we were doing our 8-ball, he says to me, and it was a good point, he says, when we do patterns and we're working on certain runouts, you always make me play 8-ball as if we're playing 9-ball. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He says, well, you always make me commit to a certain order of the balls. Like I'm going to shoot the 7-ball, the 2-ball, the 4-ball. He's like, but in 8-ball, one of the differences is that in 8-ball, sometimes you can play shape for more than one ball. You're not committed to a certain pattern. And so he was kind of like, I feel like he says the way I was teaching him 8-ball, I was kind of handcuffing him a little bit as far as taking advantage of the flexibility that 8-ball offers by making him kind of commit to a certain path that we're trying to shoehorn into a run out. And so, because very rarely do I play, for lots of different balls. And so I got to thinking about well, why is that the case? Or why, when is it right to play for more than one ball? We always hear this in 8-ball. Well, you play for multiple balls and play for, multiple balls. And so it was a good question. I got to thinking about why I do things the way I do them. And I came up with an answer, and I thought it was interesting enough to, I never really heard anybody talk about when to play shape for multiple balls and when not to. And I think that the answer is that there's times you have to, but there's other times that it's a little sloppy and you're giving up run out equity, percentage. You're hurting your run out chances if you're a little fuzzy and sloppy in your thought process. So I'm hoping that people, I have zero feedback on Chris. People following what I'm tracking here, is this all sounding good?
So far, so good. My first order of business was to make sure that everybody could hear you, and they can, but I don't see any questions.
Okay, wonderful. So what I'm going to do really quick is I wanted to review one concept that's going to be useful as we get into this. What we're going to be doing in a minute is I'm going to be showing you guys 8 different table layouts. And after I kind of talk about my thought process, I'm going to ask you guys in the chat to tell me which, are we playing shape for one ball or not? And based on kind of what I walk through. So it'll be fun here. I'll kind of highlight the topic, and then it'll be interactive where you guys get to answer a little bit too. First, I wanted to highlight one thing. I'm going to switch to my table cam. All right. Can everybody see my pool table? I'm going to turn that ball so everybody can see that's the 14 ball. Okay. I'm going to assume they can. So here is the first thing I want. This is going to be review for those that have trained with me virtually in the past or physically in the past. One of the things about playing pool that I come back to is this idea of your cue ball maneuver, your cue ball positioning is kind of like a gun that you're shooting where you're not always able to land on a dime. Sometimes you can land on a dime if you're stopping your ball. Other times you're going to be landing in a little bit of a zone where, your cue ball control is not, it's not going to hit a spot all the time. So you've got to play zone position. And so my whole idea is you've got to make sure that the zones that you're shooting for are big enough to accommodate the cue ball maneuver that you're using. So if you're playing to a 2-inch zone, that's fine if you're using a stop shot that has a 1-inch, range of outcomes. But if you're trying to play to a 2-inch zone using a cue ball route where you're going 3 rails and your cue ball can stop in a 3-foot circle, well, now your cue ball scatter is too big for that zone. You're not always going to be able to run the balls. So as an example of this, to put this in kind of concrete words or concrete, example here, I've got this set up for stripes where we've got 4 stripes in the 8 ball on the table. And the question is, this ball here is the 14. The 13 is kind of on the head rail with the 8 nearby. And then here on this corner of the table, you've got the 15, 10. And so my first question, I just want to give everyone 30 seconds. What order would you run these balls out? This is our little warm-up. This is just the warm-up, so I can define some terms.
Hey, everybody. So let us know in the chats, what order would you attempt to shoot the balls in? And while those are coming in, Demi, I do have a comment here. This comes from Sarah Shoots Pool. She says the main problem that she has with planning a run-out pattern in 8-ball on a bar box is that there's usually clusters that need to be dealt with. Is that going to be something that you're going to address during this?
Marginally. So here's my thoughts on that, Sarah. So first of all, one of the things that's tricky is when we're dealing with a wide audience is that a lot of people are going to be at different skill levels. And so one of the things that changes is that what is a high percentage maneuver for me might not be a high percentage maneuver for somebody else in the audience. So my percentages aren't always going to match. Like even, for example, in this run, the way I choose to run these balls out may not match somebody in the audience that doesn't have the comfort level with certain shots that I have. Now, so that's the first challenge. But the other part is what I would say about breaking open clusters and things like this. It's a very good question. What I would say is that I look at matches and it's almost like if somebody talked about table length banks and they said table length banks are very hard for them. That might be the case, but for every time that a game is won or lost on a table length bank, there's also 10 games that are won and lost on more routine situations. Now, obviously in bar table 8 ball, breaking open clusters is very common. But what I found is that you're going to have wide open racks where your opponent runs down to the 8 ball and then misses or scratches. And you just have open balls. Then you're going to have some spots where you've got all your balls open, but maybe a couple of them are a little tough to get on. And then you're going to have spots where you've got blockers and they still got balls on the table blocking pockets. Then you're going to have clusters. So there's a whole range. There's a whole spectrum of difficulty. And my thought is a lot of what I like to do is I like to start on the easier end of the range and get really good at converting on the routine. Like, in other words, keeping the routine runouts routine, because then for 2 reasons. One, I think a lot of matches are won and lost by doing the open routine stuff. And that it's easy to get hung up on, oh man, I wish I'd done that hard thing. But really, if you can do the easy stuff and the routine stuff very routinely, it's going to carry you a long way, number one. And number two, If you can't do the routine stuff routinely, then if that's too hard to do routinely, then we're never going to be able to do the hard stuff anyway. So I like to start on the easier end of the spectrum. And then as we get that crisp and repeatable and comfortable, then edge more and more difficult. So we in our patterns tonight, we won't necessarily have breakouts, but we will have some obstructions and we will have some challenges to overcome. But we're going to probably start easy and then work our way to intermediate and see where we get.
Okay. Real quick, Demi, could you give us a reminder of what balls are what? We've got the...
I'm sorry, the 13 is on the head rail by the 8. The 15 is by the side rail. The 10 here, 14 up here. And once we get 3 to 5 answers, just kind of read them off to me. And yeah.
Sure. Because I do believe we had some confusion that the 13 ball was an 11.
That's fine. I mean, if you know what they meant, that's fine.
Correct. So I see a minority that would do 15, 10, 14, 13. And then I see a majority that would do 14, 13, 15, and 10. And when they shoot the 10, they would want to do a 2-railer to get back, or 2, possibly 3 rails to get back
100%.
down to the 8.
Okay, so that is probably the right way to run the balls. But now I want to explain. So I'm sure everyone kind of, some people intuitively do that. Other people might not have seen why that might be preferable. So here is the reason why that's the case: is we have to look at what is the target that we are creating that we need to hit for our run to continue with these different runs. So for example, if I shoot the 15 ball, if I go 15, 10, 14, 13, 8, there's a problem. Why don't I'll just tell. I'm not going to wait for a response here. But the breaking point, I know I can always make this 15 ball and get on the 10, and I know I can always make the 10 ball and get a shot at the 14. However, if you look at the area of the table that we need to get on the 14, the problem is we don't just need to get a shot at the 14. We need a shot on the 14 with an angle to get us down table for the 13 ball. And if you look at the target for this 13 ball, it's actually fairly small, because if I'm thin on the 13 here, then when I cut the 13, I'm not going to get shape for the 8. So I can't be any thinner than about here, but I also can't be any thicker than this, or I get behind the 8 ball. So that means if I go 15, 10, 14, 13, I have to not only get on this 14, but I have to get on this 14 with an angle that allows me to get exactly here. So if I play for the 14 in this corner, boy, there's some funny angles where if I'm back cutting it or out here, I might not be able to get down table. And if I play around the table for the 14 to the side, if I get too straight on the 14, I can't get down table. Or if I get too thin, I might not be able to control my cue ball. So in other words, if you look at your cue ball hitting those targets, the target on the 13 ball is small, which makes the target on the 14 ball a little bit small as well. So the target to get on the 14 to pocket it isn't small, but the target to get on the 14 to get shape on the 13 is kind of small. So for that reason, if we look at the other way, which is 14 on the side, we can get on this 13 ball right now and have an angle to come up for this 15. And if you look at the area on the 10 ball where we could be to then swing 2 rails for shape on the 8, I could be pretty much anywhere from about here all the way to the rail and have a shot at the 10 to come around table. And the 14 ball is conveniently going to get positioned here. So what that looks like, shot was in the way. Okay, not quite.
Perfect. What a shot.
Okay. I'm just joking. Okay, so the point is that even though there was some more back and forth, so that the people that thought about running them the other way, they might have been thinking about working from one end of the table to the other, trying to minimize cue ball movement. But my point here, I can stop that, switch the camera now. Okay, my point though was that instead of thinking about one way, one end of the table to the other, I think about, does my cue ball hit the targets I needed to hit? And so going that other way, getting on the 14 ball, my cue ball maneuver was a little bit too wild to hit the target on the 14 I really needed to hit to ensure my run would continue. So that's an idea I have. I call it target gun. Your gun, your cue ball gun has to hit your target in order for your run to continue. So that's
I have a question for you, Demi, because I'm pretty sure this is what people are going to be thinking, because clearly going for the 14 to the 13 last is an option. And you did lay out the difficulty of what that could be in hitting that small zone in order to be flat on the 13, so that way you don't have a whole lot of cue ball movement to be able to get position on the 8 ball. I think everybody knows and understands that you can basically play devil's advocate on any particular option on any particular shot. On your 10 ball, what happens if you hit it too soft, or what happens if you hit it too hard? Like all, so can you maybe dive into a little deeper besides the smaller of the how the going from the 14 to the 13 in that small zone? Can you go a little deeper?
Yeah, I mean, the what I would say is that basically my idea of gun and target is the top rule. Like, that is my overarching rule. So then when we hear about all these other positional ideas, for example, playing with the line of position or minimizing cue ball movement, those are all subservient guidelines to serve the ultimate rule. So for example, minimizing cue ball movement, the whole idea of working from one end of the table to the other, that's the idea of minimizing cue ball movement, because when you minimize your cue ball movement, that tends to be more accurate cue ball maneuvers. Okay. Similarly, when you play along the line of the shot, when you try to approach the object ball coming down the line of the shot towards the ball, that's designed to make the target play bigger. So there's ways that you can use cue ball maneuvers that are smaller, and there's ways that you can play to make your targets bigger. But those are all subservient. Those all serve this idea, which is make sure your targets are bigger than your cue ball scatter. So just to really zoom in and answer that question, I can do it really quick. It shouldn't be hard.
While Demi is setting up the demonstration again, folks, if you haven't done so already, please give the stream a thumbs up. Demetrius is obviously kind enough to take time out of his day to be able to do these types of lessons. So let us know that you appreciate it by giving us a thumbs up on Facebook and or on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, though, please share the stream to your Facebook profiles and your favorite pool groups.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use solids to indicate the zones so that people can see them on the screen. If we go 10, 14, 12, 15, we have to look at the size of the zone for the 15, which is basically from here, where the 1 ball is, all the way up to about here, where this 3 ball is. If my cue ball were to stop between the 1 and the 3, I could successfully make the 15 and get on the 8 ball. And I think that makes sense. I have to be able to hit the 15, but I also don't want to be so thin that I can't hold for shape. So if that's the range between the 1 and the 3, and then that kind of forms a cone towards the 15 ball, somewhere between this triangle. Well, if that's my range, then let's look at what that does for my range on the 12 ball. If I play for the 12 in the corner, if I go 10, 14, 12 in the corner, well, if I'm straight on the 12 ball, I can follow up into that zone. And if I could be about this thin, I'm just a little bit of a cut, I can still follow off the side rail and get up to that zone. And if I'm slightly back cutting the 12 like this, maybe I can still follow up into that zone. But you see how small that range is? If I was over here on the 12, now it becomes much tougher to pocket and force the cue ball 2 rails into that zone. I don't know that I'd be able to do that. And if I'm thin out here, it just doesn't lead there. So just playing for the corner would be kind of very difficult. Difficult to hit. So what I'm looking at, like, if I can make the 10, I can make the 14, but can I really hit that tiny zone between the 2-5 there to get on the ball in the corner? I don't think so. So then I look at the side pocket. And if I make the 10 and then the 14 and come around to the side, boy, if I get straight on the 12, there's no way I can get down to this zone. I need to have some angle. And I need at least this much angle to be able to stun my cue ball down here. On the other hand, the most angle I could have is about like this, where I can cut it in softly and roll down here. Any thinner than this, it becomes hard to pocket and control. So now I could do that from a little further away. Maybe I could accept some distance. So now that's my zone here. So if I make the 10 and then make the 14, now I'm coming multiple rails this way, and I'm hoping to stop my cue ball on this little stretch of cloth. And the odds are, I can't risk coming here, so I'm going to end up going too far a lot of the time. And it's just that cue ball maneuver coming 2 rails around. My landings, my scatter on that is probably about 30 inches. I could probably stop at a 30-inch circle. Maybe that's like the length of my shaft. So, okay, that's the way I guess I would look at that is, this is my cue ball stopping. I'm going to make this ball come 2 rails around. Where can I lay my shaft to where the whole thing works? If I lay it here, this is too thin and this is straight in. If I come in a little short, maybe this is too thin. If I move it this way so it's not too thin, now here I'm straight on the rail. There's just no place I can really lay my shaft to where the whole zone works. Whereas playing from this 14 ball 2 rails around, my landing strip on the 8 ball is much, much bigger. And the reason why is because even though this target up for pocketing the 8 doesn't look that big, but you've got these 2 rails, and that slows you down. And it means I can hit this target coming in or coming off of the rail. So it actually reflects. It plays twice as big as it looks. And then because the rails slow you down, it actually plays 2.5 times bigger than it looks, which means shooting the 14 and swinging 2 rails around. You guys saw how accurately I was able to hit that ball where I nearly hit my chalk. Once you know that maneuver, the scatter on that maneuver might be about a 24-inch scatter, and I'm playing to a zone that, because the rails slow you down and reflect the size of the zone actually plays like it's 4 feet, 5 feet big. So you're playing a 2-foot cue ball maneuver to a 5-foot target. So, and because of that, it's very easy to duplicate. So I hope that makes sense. That's the best I can do to answer that question.
Oh, that was great.
Cool. So now, that was a demo. So my whole point is, here, I can switch back to me for just a moment. My whole point of that demo was to say that the most important thing in running out is making sure that whatever your plans are, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this, that you're kind of testing it to say, can I always do that? Now, there are some runs, guys, where you can't always do anything. But what you try to do is minimize the number of times you're flinging your cue ball somewhere, hoping it works, and you're trying to maximize the number of times you're playing routes that every time you call a pattern on a 2 ball, 4 ball, 7 ball, 3 ball, you have to. It's a series of balls you have to pocket, but it's also a series of targets on the table that you have to hit with your cue ball for your run to continue as planned. And so pattern play is just about making sure you're picking 2 things. You're creating a target you need to hit, and you're also picking what cue ball maneuver you're using to try to hit it. And you just have to, whenever possible, you stack it up to where your cue ball maneuvers are tight enough to hit the targets you're shooting at. That's the overarching rule, and all the other theory of patterns serve that rule. So our topic tonight is the use of playing shape for multiple balls. When do we do it? And it got me thinking, and in my little hierarchy of patterns, I think that the idea of playing shape for multiple balls, it fits. It's a tool that you use when you are struggling to find a cue ball maneuver that will hit a specific target. So I'm going to give you a concrete example here. I'm going to share this screen here. And that should pop-up should go away in a second. Can you guys see this table layout? It's four balls on the screen.
Yep, they can see it.
Okay, so in this case, if I'm going to obviously play the 13 ball. I'm stripes, by the way. I'm going to play the 13 ball, and I have to play a shape to get up table here for the 10-11. Well, I'm going to be using high right spin and coming 1, 2, 3 rails. But the thing about this is, I don't know, each of these balls individually has a fairly small target. So this 10 ball, I need to be fairly full on the 10 ball if I play shape for the 10 ball next. On the other hand, if I try to play shape for the 11 ball next, that's a very small zone too. I can't be thin back cutting the 11, but I also don't want to be so thin above the 11 that I'm crashing into the 10 ball. So if you had to tell me to commit ahead of time, like, hey, I have to call my next shot, it would make this run very tough because it would be tough to predict. Each of those zones would be by themselves a little bit small. However, because those zones kind of overlap, or are next to each other, rather, you can actually play shape for either ball. And by putting those two zones together, you've created one like ultimate, what do they call Optimus Prime? You've created this one super big zone that you know you can hit. So to set this one up, that's like this. Something like this. So just to be clear on this, let me flip to my table, guys. Sorry about that. So just to see this on the table. So if I play shape, this is the 12 and the 11. If I play for the 12 ball, I wouldn't want to end up this thin. It's hard to control my cue ball. The thickest I could be on the 12, or the thinnest I could be on the 12 is about here. But then this would work, and straight in would work. I could follow forward, and maybe a little bit below it would work. I could still follow over to here for the 11. But you see how small that zone is for the 12? It's a little tight. But on the other hand, anything right where the 12 ball zone ends here, that's also where the 11 ball zone ends for playing shape for the 11. So now I can just play shape for anywhere between this 4 ball and the 7 ball. Anywhere down here is fine. And if I get between here and here, I shoot the 12. And if I get between here and here, I can shoot the 11 and get on the 12 next. And so I know which ball. Okay, so I came down all the way to the end rail. So clearly I'm going to be playing for the 11 ball next. Okay. So I'm just going to go back to the this real quick. So I guess my point would be, this is a case where each zone independently is too small to know that my cue ball scatter's too wild to hit either one of those 100%. But by putting them side by side, I know I will hit one of them. So therefore, this is a spot where playing shape for both balls is kind of necessary and totally fine. What kind of comments am I seeing here, Chris? Does that make sense?
Everybody's loving what you're doing so far. Okay. I haven't really seen any questions. And just so you know, Demetrius, if you just give me some sort of visual indication of your zones, I'm actually drawing them for the viewers to see. You're not able to see what I'm drawing, but the viewers do see it.
I've seen your drawing. I'm a bit concerned, but no. Thank you for doing that. So what I came up with is, I came up with 3 options. So during the question and answer part of this, I came up with one of 3 categories. All right, here's how this works. Sometimes we play shape for 1 ball. Sometimes we play shape for multiple balls. And sometimes we kind of do a mixture where we have to play with backup balls, but we're really hoping to land on 1. So let me just kind of run through this with you guys. Sometimes, so in the first example, the first run out, I was playing for a specific ball every time. That's because when we're playing shape for 1 ball, which is obtaining position, we're going to be obtaining position on a specific ball, which gives us our best chance to run out. And we know that the target is large enough to reliably hit. So if we know that we can play shape for 1 ball and we know that we can hit that target, then there's no reason to play for multiple balls. Let's just run them out the way we want to run them out. And when I play, and I think to Jeff's point, my student that asked me about this, whenever possible, I try to play for one ball, and I try to plan out my run and execute it as planned. So that's my first goal, is to find a way to run the balls out where I know I can execute it the way it's in my head. So then we go to second thing, is just what we just looked at, the one we just looked at. Sometimes we look at multiple balls and there's no preference which one we land on. So my thought of option 2 would be, there is no single target that we can reliably hit. So we have a problem. What do? We can't reliably hit a target. But we can reliably hit the combined targets of those several balls put together, the optimist prime zone. And here's the important part. It doesn't matter which one, because there is no real difference in our equity, regardless of which sequence we finish with. So whether I landed on the 10 or the 11 or whatever, the 11 or 12, whatever, either one I land on, I'm like, my run-out percentages are very, very high either way. It's not like landing on the 10 or the 11 ball was worse. It's like, nah, it does have kind of indifferent. I'm indifferent to which one I land on because they're both totally fine. So that would be when we play for multiple balls. It is a tool that solves a problem. The problem being our cue ball scatter is too big for that target. Now we have another tool to solve it, multiple balls. And then we've got this one I thought I'd bring up, which is one ball with backups. Or I guess you could say it's multiple balls with a preference. So there is a ball that we would prefer to fall on next that would maximize our chances of running out, but that the target for that ball is just too small to reliably hit. So in that case, we still try for that ball, but we have other balls as backups to ensure that at least our run continues, even if using the backups mean that our run out percentage is going to be a little lower. So it's like we have one ball, if we can get on the one, for example, if we get on the 5 ball, man, we're almost 100% to run the balls out. But if we can't get on the 5, at least we're on the 3, but then maybe we're only 70% to run out. So it's going to be a little tougher run if we have to go 3 ball next, but at least we're at the table. So those are kind of like when we look at these different diagrams, I'm going to be asking you guys, like, are we playing for one ball? Are we playing for multiple balls and it doesn't matter? Or are we playing for multiple balls, but we should have our eye on one because that would give us the best chance of running out if we happen to pick up that target? Give me some thumbs up if that makes some sense. Any questions about that? Or it might make more sense when we start looking at layouts. And while we're waiting, I'm going to share this. I thought about Sarah's question about the breakouts, and I also thought about the comments about how playing shape for the 8 ball in my first run where I went 3 rails around. Like I said in the beginning, my cue ball maneuvers that I've developed for myself are certainly different than some of the maneuvers. My cue ball is very good, so I know what I can do with my cue ball. And so some of the time people watching would be like, well, I couldn't play it that way. I can't make the cue ball go there. I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. Fair enough. So in the end, you always have to play to your capabilities and your percentages. And that's why when I train pool, I don't just talk about patterns and theory. I also make a big part of my game, my training, about helping people develop their cue ball so that they have core, I call them my core shots. There's certain maneuvers that ultimately pattern play is just assembling certain maneuvers with the cue ball that you know how to make. And so I make sure a lot of times some of my students have all the cue ball maneuvers possible. They just need help putting it together better. But some of my students are missing some tools from their cue ball toolbox. And then I dig right in and we work really hard so that you can start building up different reliable cue ball paths that you can count on under pressure. All right. Am I getting thumbs up on this, Chris? People kind of getting this whole idea?
Yep, we're getting thumbs up. And I just want you to know that Tony Robles is in the house.
Oh my goodness! No!
And he said, "Go ahead." Well, he says that he loves your teaching style, Demetrius. You're very knowledgeable, and I'm very lucky to have you as my coach.
Well, thank you, Tony. You know what? I think I told you this. I ran into Tony. Gosh, now I can't remember if it was the Super Billiard Expo a couple of years ago, I think, but I told him this in person, but I won't go into the compliment that he gave me because then it'll sound like I'm bragging. But Tony, in my entire life, he paid me like the strongest compliment that anyone's ever paid me. And it was just so warm and generous of a guy. So I'm honored to have you in the chat. My goodness, I was reading about you in magazines when I couldn't draw my ball. So not that you're old, Tony. Okay. Let me backpedal. Okay, let me go into some examples. Let's go to the next example. Let me change the subject. Abort.
Well, Tony wants to highlight, it says, don't ever take it easy on me when you're coaching me.
Yeah, don't worry, Tony. We got that in common. Okay, so let's see. Why did that not work? I wanted to go to, I know why that didn't work, because I need to page the second page. Hold on, let me move this box. Let me make this smaller. This is like page 1. I want to go to page 2. Hold on. This toolbar is kind of in my way.
Maybe zoom out a little bit.
Okay, I've got to go to page 2. There's got to be, what is it not? Oh no, hang on. You'd think you could turn the page. Okay, let me see. Does this bar move? Sorry guys, here we go.
Do you have the right file open?
Let me stop share real quick. And I think maybe if that bar is out of my way, I can, there was, I've got this. Bear with me, guys. I know what I'm going to do. Okay, this will work. So this was our first layout. We're going to now go to this layout as number 2. We have got, here we go. We've got, now I can move this bar back out of the way. Let me make this a little bit bigger and get this out of the way there. Okay, we only have 4 balls on the table, just four little balls. We've got the 13, the 10, the 11, and the 8. And our cue ball is on the spot, so we have a little bit of a thin cut on the 13, but it's pretty friendly, and we shouldn't have any trouble. So what I'd like people to consider and kind of think about is this a spot where we're playing shape for 1 ball? Is this a spot where we're playing shape for multiple balls? Or is this a spot where we have to play for multiple balls? There's 1 ball we'd like to get on, but it's just too tough, so we got to have a backup. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to set this up real quick.
Yep, and while you're setting that up, I do have a question for you. This comes from Brian Lowell, who's watching on Facebook. He's saying, Demi, you removed your calendar from your website. Is there a plan to put it back up to see when you're available for boot camps?
Yeah, good question. You know what? It was the idea of having an interactive calendar. You know what? I don't even remember ever having a real time. Oh, I do remember. My son helped me with that. He's a computer guy. That's actually a good question. I'm embarrassed. I don't remember why I ever stopped doing it. I think what happened, you know what happened is last year I got booked for the year, and I had to actually that's what happened. I had to turn my calendar off because I had a waiting list that was like really long, and I actually had to start a waiting list for 2024 last summer. And so I had to disable the calendar because here's why. It's because when people went to the calendar, I didn't like it because it was like they'd have to page through 6 months of solid book, and it just felt like a negative customer experience. So I just updated my website and say, hey, sorry, due to volume, I'm looking at waiting for 2024. And then I just never turned it back on. And now I don't have a 6-month waiting list. So I probably could, yeah, thanks for the swift kick in the rear. I should probably get that figured out. Here's the 8 ball. 8 ball's kind of even. Like, let's see the 13 ball. Okay. Do we have some comments about what we think on this particular run?
Okay, so we've got some suggestions as to what pattern they would pick, but now finally here's a comment that answers your question. This comes from Cue Ball Control, sometimes saying single ball position, and I'm assuming that's single ball position with a backup to go with it. The other ones come from Bang Time Pool. He's saying pretty much try to get position for the 10.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So 100%. This is a single position, and here is where I think this is what actually caused me to start wanting to do this video. Is that I feel that people are a little bit too sloppy sometimes with their pattern play. So in other words, this whole tool of playing shape for multiple balls. Remember, guys, that's a tool that you use to solve a problem, which is I don't know if I can get shape. But when you use that tool too often, well, it's 8-ball, and I've got lots of balls, and I'll just get out there somewhere and I'll figure it out. That is fuzzy thinking, and that is costing you games. And here's why. It's if I play this 13 and then just play shape for either the 10 or the 14. Well, the problem with that is it's a lot harder to get from the 10 to the 14 and then back down for the 8 than it is to get from the 14 to the 10. So, for example, if I come out here and get on the 10 ball, well, now what? I'm going to roll this in softly and end up shooting the 14 past this. I mean, this is not good. And if I get on the 10 ball out here, well, now it's like same problem. I'm kind of like rolling the 10 forward, or suppose even there's just a lot of funny spots where even if I'm on the 10 ball here, best case scenario, maybe I could hold an angle, but then I have to shoot this tougher shot in the 14 and draw my cue ball back. It's a little bit, and there's a lot of funny areas I can get in. So this is one where the 14 ball's further from the corner than the 10, which means that if I can get on this 14, it's much more natural to just slide over, play the 10 ball next, and then I can, depending on my angle I get, I should be able to play for either pocket. So we'll see how that goes. Chris told me to try running them out. Of course, now I'm feeling some heat. So I'm all in on this 14 ball. Okay, so that works out pretty well. And I do think, Chris, I do think that was not necessarily one where we want a backup. I think that we could go ahead and play all out. So when you said maybe he meant a backup, I actually don't think so. I think that Bank Time Billiards, was it?
Yes, Bank Time Pool.
Absolutely right on. Just playing shape all in for the 10 ball. Now, worst case scenario is that we could get straight in on the 10 ball, which could be a little annoying if our cue ball had come out and gotten straight in on the 10. It could make it a little funny. We'd have to probably draw back and have a little bit of a testy back cutoff, but whatever. But at least we'd be on the 10 and then drawing back and then shooting a rolling shot on the 11. So, okay, good. Let's go to another one because we've got more. And now I should be able to scroll to the next one with relative ease, right? Let me move this. Yeah, it's working. All right. This one, they're getting a little bit more, they're going to get more interesting, guys. Kind of zoom in a little here and get my face out of the way. No, let's just put us over here for now. There. All right, so we're stripes. Clearly, we're going to be shooting the 13 ball next, and then we have to get on another ball and finish our run. So again, I want to hear people's thoughts. One ball, multiple balls, or is it one ball as a goal with another ball as a backup? All right, I'm almost done setting these up. So how are we doing on the comments?
It looks like we've got a consensus on multiple ball positioning. I see a majority that wants to go from the 13 and land on the 10. And I do see one suggestion from trying to go from the 13 to, actually no, we have two now. Two that says go from the 13 to the 11.
All right, so here's my thoughts on this. I think that this is, and of course, I might not have them set up to the inch. I'm doing this in real time. But I think that this is a multiple ball position for a couple reasons. Let's draw our zones for each target. So if we wanted to get position on this 12 ball, clearly we don't want to end up long and straight because the 10 doesn't pass the 2 in the other corner. So we need to come out where we have an angle on the 12 to pivot across for the 10 in the same pocket. So even if we clear the 7, like here, this would be a little uncomfortably thick. I would really have to force my cue ball across, and bad things could happen. If I'm going to play the 12 ball next, I would like to at least have minimum this much angle. Once I'm at a half ball hit angle, I should have enough angle to roll this ball, maybe a touch of check, and float across. So this is the thickest I'd want to be on the 12. This is the start of my 12 ball zone. And then I'm good on the 12 ball to about here. I could easily cut the 12 in and roll across from here. So my zone goes from here to here. My problem with that is playing this 9 ball across table, I'm crossing my line of position. I'm coming this way. And my cue ball landing area is just not precise enough to land on that 12 ball with any assurance. Now, to be fair, okay, maybe somebody's ahead of me. Maybe if I played it this way, guys, to be fair, I could play my cue ball 2 rails, hitting here, and then try to rebound off the second rail, kind of with the line like this. And now, playing the line of position and using this rail as brakes, I'm likely to be able to pick up that angle. The problem with that is, once in a while, I could get too far and tangle up with the 8, or I could bounce a little and end up long on this. I could end up long or near the rail. It's a little bit unnecessary. So if that was somebody's vision, was going 2 rails to make sure I got on that 12 ball, well, that's an idea. So here's the target for the 12 again. But notice that right where that target ends, the 10 ball target kind of begins. Because if I'm here on the 10, I can make the 10 ball, and then I'm good all the way down. Again, I don't want to be too thick, but I'm probably good to about here on the 10 ball to follow up to the 12 on the side. So I've got this 10 ball zone here, and then I've got this 12 ball zone here, and it kind of creates the Optimus Prime zone again for me, where I have the whole range between the 6 and the 1. And what's another important feature, and I just want to highlight this feature one more time, it doesn't matter which one, because there's no real difference in equity regardless of which sequence I finish with. So it's multiple balls with no preference, because really, if you look at where the 8 is, it's sitting in front of the side. Whether I go 12-10 or 10-12, either way, I'm going to be finishing in that quadrant of the table with an easy shot on the side. So I would say this is a time when I cannot hit either of those zones guaranteed, but by putting them together, I ensure I can hit one of them. And since it doesn't matter either way, then I'm going to go ahead and play for both zones. Now, I could change that real quick. I just to make the other path I was talking about, that 2 rail. If there was a really strong reason that I had to eliminate this 12 first, for example, if there was balls that were making it tough to get on the 12 ball from some other route, where getting on the 10 and coming up for the 12 late, I don't know, it just doesn't look that bad. But maybe if there was a reason I had to get on the 12 next, I could try to zigzag into my positional zone. But as is, I don't think it really matters. So play to come right down this line, and now I've got that nice 2.5, 3 foot landing strip. So I play to the center and just nudge across. All right. Now I got too thin for the 12, so guess what? Perfect for the 10. No real difference in equity. we're going to start picking up pace. Let's start picking up pace. I think we're getting into a rhythm here. So now, all right, example 3. And again, I like this one. They're getting more interesting, maybe. We've got strikes. We've got 4 strikes on the table. The 9, 13, 10, 11. And you know what? I'm trying to think if I, you know what? I set this up different on my diagram than I had it in my head, but I want to see what people say. So I'll set it up on the table while you guys tell me what your thoughts are.
All right, everybody. What ball would you start with? Judging by the diagram here, it looks like our only options are going to be the 9 or the 13. So who starts with the 9 and who starts with the 13? All right, so Demetrius, looks like we've got an overwhelming majority says let's start with the 13. I do have one, though, that does suggest maybe playing the 9 first. They're suggesting that if you play a stop shot on the 9 ball, you should have the 11. This is based on the diagram. And then from there, roll forward a little bit to play, I guess, the 10 on the side, to which you play a stop shot on the 13 and then position on the 8. Where the vast majority are saying try to go from the 13 to the 10, and then from the 10 to the 11, and then from the 11 to the 9, and then to the 8. And it looks like you're muted, Demetrius.
Okay, yep, I just got that up. So, okay, I just want to pull the screen back up. And so I did my best to set these up the way they were on the screen, on the diagram. So I could see going either way. What I would say is it depends a little bit on your environment. So I happen to have a 9-foot diamond with cloth that hasn't been changed in 2 years that plays just really miserable. Like the pockets are tight, the balls don't go in. It takes a good hit to make balls. And so the problem for me with going like 9, 11, 15 coming back, or 9, 15, 11 on the side coming up for the 10, is that really the position I would need to be in to confidently be able to even pocket the 10 in the corner. It's like, here's the problem. I would not want this shot here on my table, because if I'm where the 6 is, if I'm shooting that 10 and stunning over to here with a little stun draw, like this shot here on my table, you don't have to make that ball. Similarly, if you get out here, this is not really a stun shot brings you at the side. You'd have to like stun run through the ball. It's a little touchy. If you're going to play for the corner, you really want to be between here and here. Now, I know what you're thinking is, well, if I go 9, 15 on the side, I should be able to follow into that zone. Here's the problem. These side pockets, and Chris, you and I've talked to you about this how many times, side pockets like this?
Yeah.
If you are straight in on this 11 on the side, I could probably roll that in for the 10 ball last. But if I'm a little bit here, I've got way too much angle to be able to play for that zone. Similarly, if I'm out here, where I'm rolling this way, it's way too much angle to hold for the 10. And these side pockets are tricky. And there's a long answer on why that is, but it really has to do with there's no side rail. I can't use side spin because there's no rail anywhere nearby. So my actual target, I'd have to get somewhere between here on the 11 and about here on the 11 to like either stun over to here or roll over to here. So I've got like a 2 or 3 inch target here to land on for the 11 at the side. So I could hit a 3 inch target for a tough shot of the 10 in the corner. And so that means that if I play the 9 and then I play this 15, boy, it's just a little bit too tight for me. If I could stop, and I'm automatically in that zone, maybe. But if I have to try to move my cue ball into that zone, it's a little bit tough. So I can see how, it's not silly. I wouldn't say whoever suggested that is silly, but I think that if you set this run up after we get off the stream and try running them out, I predict that you're going to make the 9 and the 15, and you're going to get a shot at the 11, but you might struggle to get the right angle on the 11, to get the right angle on the 10, to be able to bury the 10 ball and control your cue ball. That's my prediction. It's a little finicky. So I agree with the other people, which is we start with the 10 on the side, and here's where it's cool is we go all out to play shape on this ball here. Now, this is the 11 on my table. I know it was a different ball on the diagram, so don't worry if it doesn't match what the text says, because I didn't match up the balls correctly. But absolutely right. Here's the point is we're not just going to make the 10 on the side and come out for some ball. And this is where I think people get fuzzy, is I see a lot of students that when I shoot with, where they want to follow this out and just get on something. They're like, well, the 9 goes to the side, the 11 goes to the corner, the 15 goes, everything goes everywhere. So we'll just get on something and I'll figure it out. The problem is if we bounce out and get on the 9 on the side, so suppose I got my cue ball where that's really the only good shot I have is the 9 on the side. If I have a 9 on the side with an angle to where my cue ball is moving down table, like for example, if I end up like, I don't know, here, now if I shoot the 9, I'm coming down this way. That's no bargain. If I shoot the 11, I'm crashing into the 15. And if I shoot this 15 ball, I'm racing 2 rails around, and it's not real clear what's going to happen next. So here's an example of where I do think we could run out if we got on another ball, but it would be a loss of equity. Like my run out percentages would drop. So I want to use inside English and try to come towards the 11 and do exactly what people said. Now, depending on the angle I get on the 11, I do reserve the ability to go 11, 15, 9. And if I get differently, I could always go 11, 9, 15. To me, as long as you eliminate the 11 next and you're fairly full on it, you should have both options. But I do think that 15, 9, 8 would be a good way to finish. Of course, when you play bad cue ball, now
how many of y'all were waiting for that to happen?
I know. Everyone bets against me, even my own mom. Now, this is a time when I would play for multiple balls because I can't reach elevated over the 8. So. All right, you guys got me. Okay, so that one's definitely a little bit more open to discussion. So they should be getting more fun though, real quick. Oh yeah. This one's gonna be fun. So let's see about. Sorry, guys, let me get that centered there for you. All right, get this moved over just a little. So we're strikes. We've got the 8, we've got 4 strikes, the 13, 11, 9, 10, and a couple solids block and some paths. What are your thoughts? 1 ball, multiple balls, or 1 ball with backups? Is there a ball we'd love to get on, but we can't always? Tell me your thoughts. I'll set it up.
Oh, it looks like we're getting some flavors on this one here. Let's see. So everybody's at least agreeing to starting with the 13 ball. And Duggar, how's it going? It's good to see you, man. Duggar here on YouTube says, or most of these are coming from YouTube. I do finally see one on Facebook. Duggar is saying going from the 13 to the 10, and then using the 9 to get on the 11, and having the 11 be the key ball to the 8. But then Tim McDaniel is suggesting maybe going from the 13 to the 9, and then from the 9 to the 10 to the 11 to the 8. So there's a toss-up between whether or not to get position on the 9 or whether to get position on the 10.
All right. So that's a great question. So here is my thought for you guys. Suppose the 13 ball is pocketed. So the 13 ball is gone, and you started with ball in hand. So forget about the 13. It's off the table, and now you get ball in hand. I think everybody would agree that we're going to save the 11 as a key ball. If you don't agree with that, watch. Chris, do you have a video on key balls and 8 ball by chance?
Not.
It's not. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, not dedicated, but I do talk about it a lot on my live streams.
So if you didn't recognize that the 11 is a key ball, watch more little Chris videos. But yes, clearly we're going to start with the 13. Clearly we're going to end with the 11. So now the question is, if you had ball in hand and you had to either go 9, 10, 11 or 10, 9, 11, which would you prefer? And I think that once again, these side pocket shots are kind of tricky because we have to look at what target we can land on to get from the 9 to the 11. And so let me go to my screen. Let me go to my table. If I shoot the 13, get on the 12, and I want to come up for the 10, everybody's picturing, yeah, I'll get right here. And I'll just make this and follow forward for the 11. Great. But what if I get here? Now, it's actually not so, and maybe I can follow to the end rail and bounce out for the 11. So to be fair, I guess I could go to the end rail. As long as I'm not this thin here, a follow shot takes me into the 8 ball. And so I'd have to be thicker than this. The thinnest I'd want to be on the 10 ball is here to go to 1 rail and out. The problem is there might be some funny angles where you're kind of rolling this way, where you're rolling 1 rail towards the 11, and you'd either have to try to cross your line and get thin on the 11, or you'd have to use check side to come up, and it could get a little dicey. But that's okay. And then you're good from about here to maybe about here, where you can follow forward and accept some distance on the 11. But if you get here, I guess, you know what? As I look at this, guys, I'm willing to acknowledge that here I could still probably stun my ball at the end rail and come up. So maybe my 10 ball zone, originally I was thinking, well, play in shape for the 10 to the side to just follow straight forward. It's very small. But if I want myself to get here to come this way, or here to come this way, I've got from about, I don't know, I think this is reasonable here. And it's good probably to about here. So as I look at that, that's probably pretty controllable, guys. I learned something on this run. I would have had this I had this in my mind as I prefer to get on this 10 ball first. And here's why. On the other hand, if I'm on the 12 ball, say the 10's already gone, and all I got to do is go 12, 11, 8. I feel like I have a huge area on the 12 ball where I can play my cue ball back to this rail and tap them in. So to me, playing that, I think that the 13 in this case, the 12 is the ball on the head rail here. I feel very, very confident that if I can save that 12, 11, 8 for last, that there's just a lot of friendly angles where I can make the 12 and come back 11, 8. Whereas picking up the right angle on the 10 ball, these side pockets can sometimes get a little tricky where you don't always get the angle you want, and you end up having to make some kind of hickey maneuver, forcing your ball some which way and adding extra rails. So this to me originally was, I want to play to see if I can get lucky enough to pick up an angle on the 10 of this side over here and pull and then save this ball and then that ball. The problem with playing for 1 ball is that straight in on the 10, I can still come back for the 12. But if I get any on this side of it, now I'm too thin on the 10, I'd be running into a wall. So I can't get past this line if I'm going to play the 10 to the side. On the other hand, if I'm thinner than this, I can't play the 10 to the side from here either. So my zone on the 10 to the side is fairly small. So this is one where I can't guarantee I'm going to get shape on the 10 to the side. So my original thought was I want to play for the 10 of the side as my priority ball, because if I happen to land on the 10 of the side, it kind of makes the whole rack really easy. But if I go a little further, then I will accept as a backup going 12, 10, 11. So this is one where I prioritize one, but I can't guarantee I hit the target, so I use the other one as a backup. And I still think that that's the way I would play this. I still think I would prefer to get on the 10 next, but whoever the gentleman was that said save the 10, 11, 8 for last, it's probably not terrible. So I'm going to see, but I got to make sure, guys, it's better I go too far. I can't come short of this mark here. All right. You guys, all you guys in the chat, ha ha ha, you got me again.
Bumping balls is not allowed.
All right, you got me. Let's try this. Let's try not hitting the 6. I can't shoot pool, guys. This is a good time to talk about it. Sometimes you just got to play safe. The balls are unrunnable. All right. I have a real hard time talking and then playing. It's not easy. Yeah, I give up. All right, last try, and then we're packing it up. You guys can see by going that particular route, there's just no room for anything to go wrong. Okay. Yeah. Good night, dear guys. It's okay. Time to try those swerve shots.
Oh, what a shot!
All right, let's go 2 on the side.
Oh, holy crap! You almost made it.
Oh, okay.
So there is a question though. James Duggar wants to know: is there a reason to not use inside spin there?
I absolutely had to. Yeah. I needed inside spin, otherwise you'd run into the 7 ball like I did. And I'm sorry, let me just close something. Yeah, that's exactly. I needed a wisp of inside, and I did not have a wisp of inside. So you're absolutely right.
I think you closed your camera.
Yeah, I know. I'm just getting it fixed.
There we go.
Whoever said inside, I was actually, so you guys thought I was struggling there to run out. I was going to see if anyone suggested inside English on that shot. And I'm very happy to see my students developing an awareness of inside English. It's the best way to coach, man, is you build your students up like that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay. All right. Let's go to another one. They're going to get fun here. They're going to get fun. I've got 4 more, I think. This one, here we got some congestion. Here we got some thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead and mute this. We are still stripes, but they're getting a little crazy, man. They're getting a little crazy. I don't even remember this one. So I'm going to have to do some thinking on my feet. Go ahead and take a look at stripes. I don't even know, but whatever I do, I'm going to start with a bunch of inside.
All right, everybody. So it's clear that we're going to start with the 10 ball, I would think. I guess the question would be are we going to transition to the 13, the 9, or even the 12? I mean, let alone who would actually try to transition all the way to the 11? Because I would think this is definitely one of the scenarios, maybe I'm wrong, where you do want to prioritize getting position on one particular ball, but as you're coming back up table, you're going to land on multiple balls.
All right, I'm done setting them up. Now I got to look at this pattern and remember what I'm thinking about here.
We do have one question. This is from Nightcram. He says, if you don't need English for position, do you just hit center ball?
In general, when you say center ball, first of all, I'm going to assume that you're talking about vertical axis, like a high-low, but no side spin. So in general, if you don't need side spin, the short answer is, yeah, you don't want to use side spin if you don't need it. But I do think that some players prefer on certain shots using a little bit of what they call gearing outside English, maybe like a half tip of outside spin to kind of cancel cut and deuce throw. On some shots, that's pleasant to make sure the balls don't skid. Some players, like CJ Wiley, prefer touch of inside. This has a whole theory about that. But I would say in general, don't use side spin if you're not using it to control the cue ball. That's a good starting place. And then there's always some room to fiddle around with tiny wisps of gearing spin if you prefer it. If you feel it helps your make percentage on certain shots, go ahead. But in general, don't use it if you don't need it.
All right. So it looks like we've got an overwhelming majority that says they're going to go from the 10 to the 9. Or actually 10 to the 9 to the 13. Once they get on the 13, then it starts to get a little wishy-washy to where some people will go from the 13 to the 11. Some will go from the 13 to the 12.
Well, this is funny. I did not make notes. Like, I didn't write anything up about this that I'm referring to, so I'm just looking at this with fresh eyes right now. My general feel on this is that at some point, Chris, you mentioned getting on the 11 ball. And to get on the 11 ball requires a very specific angle on another ball. So if we get really good on the 13, we could maybe drift up for the 11. And if we get a good angle on the 12, we could maybe drift up for the 11. So as I look at this, the ball that worries me the most is the 11. This to me might just be a multiple balls position, because if we get on the 9, I feel we could maybe stop on the 9 and have an angle on the 13 to float down for the 11 some which way. And then getting out on the 12 doesn't look like it would be that big of a deal. A lot of ways to come up with the 12 in the same pocket as the 11, or even go forward for the 12 on the side, not by preference, but always a possibility. But as long as we can get the 11 out of there. On the other hand, we could also, if we happen to pick up the angle on the 12, to just float forward and play the 11 next. I wouldn't really be too worried about saving the 9-13 for later, because all I'd have to do is come out, get on the 9 ball to the 13. It doesn't seem that challenging. The reason I say that is because if here's the shot line on the 9, as long as I'm straight or even a little pass straight in, I can still play and stun my cue ball to the rail for the 13 next. So I actually, as I look at this, I'm not convinced that there's absolutely one ball I have to get on. So I think that I'm just going to float out, try to get on the balls in general. And I think I think getting on the 9 to go to the 13 and float down for the 11 makes a lot of sense, just because it might be easier to finish with 11, 12, 8. But if we happen to get a good angle on the 12, so I think I'm okay with multiple balls on this. As I look at this now, I don't know what my original answer was going to be on this, but as I look at this now, I don't see that there's one run that's going to be that much easier or that much harder. The danger with trying to go all in and get on the 12 ball next is if I come too far and now I'm thin on the 12, everything else looks ugly. There's some dead zone down here. So I just don't want to get in that dead zone. So from here, I've got the 9 or the 13. If I go a little further, I've got the 12. So as long as I'm somewhere between the 9 and the 12, I should be okay. So whoever said multiple balls or potentially even favoring the 9, I'm good with all those answers. And I'm sorry I didn't make those. I thought I would remember all this, but.
So there is a question. This comes from Bang Time Pool. He says he wants to know, how often do you not use spin when you pocket balls?
So in general, I have a easy theory about this. I break my cue ball maneuvers into 2 groups of shots: hold shots and move shots. Hold shots are where I'm trying to like minimize cue ball movement. I'm stopping, I'm rolling a little bit forward, or I'm stunning my cue ball a foot or 2, or maybe just drift into a rail and bumping a couple inches off a rail. Then I've got my move shots where I'm trying to move my cue ball up and down table, multiple rails, lots of distance. Generally, the purpose of side spin is to change the cue ball's direction off of rails. So therefore, on my move shots, where I'm sending the cue ball off multiple rails and sending it, moving a lot of distance and maybe some multiple rails, I'm oftentimes going to be using side spin to help direct the cue ball's path. On the other hand, on my hold shots, where all I'm doing is stopping or rolling forward a little bit or stunning over a couple inches, if I'm not moving the cue ball, I'm not smashing into a rail with speed, there's really no purpose for me to be spinning the ball, because the only purpose of side spin is to adjust the cue ball's path off rails. So if I'm not sending it into rails with speed, I don't really need to spin my ball. So in short, my hold shots tend to be vertical axis. My move shots tend to be horizontal. And so when you see this, I'm probably going to have a move shot on the 10, so I might have a little bit of spin on here. Maybe I touch on outside to bring it back towards the middle. And then what you'll probably see is that the times I'm not moving my cue ball, I'm probably sticking to center ball. So let's see. I'm going to try to float up. I kind of like, I'm good getting on the 9. I'm also good getting on the 12. So I crossed my shot line on the 9 and the 13. So I happen to get pretty good on the 12. Now I might have created a little bit of a problem with this 4 ball, but I didn't think that far ahead, guys. I'm a 1 ball ahead kind of guy. So, I created a little challenge. I don't know, 1 rail probably. Seems right.
What a shot. Let me ask you a question, because I would think clearly that is not the preferred pattern. It just happened to be the pattern because of the execution of the cue ball. So my question is going to be is the intended pattern that you wanted to play going to be the one that you would always tend to go for, knowing that you have those backup options that you ended up going for?
So I would say that what I did wrong there is that I wasn't very careful about the angle I got on this 11. And so I got a little bit on the 12 ball. I wasn't straight on. I was kind of drifting a little bit towards the short side of the zone. So I had a choice between soft rolling this in or maybe following it firmer and coming out to the wider part of the shot zone on the 11. In a match, I think what I would do is I'd walk around and look at where I could land. And if I felt that there was concern, so I got thin on the 11, which brought the 4 ball a little bit into play and kind of created a little bit of a fumble. I think in a match, I'd walk around and look at that. And if I felt concerned that rolling the 12 in softly, I could get too thin, then I would probably make the decision to follow 1 rail all the way back out for the 11 and really make sure I was thick enough on the 11 to control my cue ball a little bit more predictably. I think that I'm just kind of setting up the balls and shooting at them to try to keep things going in real time. But to your question, I think that in general, if I'm playing well, like I think the whole point of this video is saying, when do we need a backup plan and when don't we? And I would say that usually, if I don't think I can execute my primary plan, then I want to have a backup plan. But if I feel I can execute my primary plan, I don't really worry about backup plans if I'm confident I can do it. I just need to make sure I do it then. And I would say this is a time I didn't really make sure I did it.
So in this case, though, then is the primary plan to get on the 9 and the 12 was just a backup?
I think this is one where we said it was multiple balls because I felt like I could get on the 9. This is the one where I said I wouldn't mind getting on the 9, going 13, 11, or getting on the 12, like I said. So right. I was fine getting on the 12 and rolling forward. I just didn't make that pivot very well. So I felt like this was a multiple ball would work as long as we prioritize getting on the. So because we could go 9, 13, 11. If we get on the 9, we could go, if we get on the 13, we could skip the 9 and go 13, 11 and come back up. You know, we could go 12, 11 like I did if I'm just a little bit more careful with my angle on the 11. So this is one where all of those answers would work. And I don't think that one is substantially better or worse, but I also think that this cue ball maneuver I'm using to fling my cue ball off the end rail, it's crossing some of the shot lines and it's too hard to know which of those is going to look best when I land. So there was no real advantage to playing going all in for one ball. There's just the difference in equity was not substantial, and the targets for each individual ball was too small to be predictable. At least that's how it felt to me. But and guys, this is not a test where there's not always a right answer. My whole point, guys, and I really want to make this clear. The main idea here. My main idea is I want you guys to be thinking about that as opposed to just reflexively sending your cue ball in the like if your thought process was, hey, I know I can get on the 9, 13, 11. I know I can get on the 13, 11. I know I can get on the 12, 11. Doesn't seem like it really matters too much. They all work, but I can't really know which one's going to be best until I see exactly where I land because all options are good. So I'm just going to put myself in the middle and then reevaluate. Totally fine. But if your thought process is, well, there's a bunch of balls, I'm sure I'll get on one of them. Let's fling the cue ball up and just take what we get. That's just a little too fuzzy. That's all.
Okay. Bang Time Pool wants to know if you're a cue ball last or object ball last player.
Object ball. Always object ball. I've heard some interesting stuff about that. It makes no sense to me. I think there might be exceptions. Like if people want to look at the cue ball when they're breaking, when they're jumping, maybe on a masse, if they're jacked up over a ball. I mean, these are times when cue ball strike really matters, and there's always exception cases. But the vast majority of your open shots, yeah. I do what I call my bookend patterns. My bookend eye patterns mean the bookends. I start and finish with the object ball. So I start when I'm standing up. I look at the object ball, and I'm looking at the contact point of the object ball all the way from standing up to when I'm in my stance. That helps staring at that object ball the whole way down, helps you drop onto the ball on the shot line. And once you're down, you can look back and forth between the cue ball and the object ball. And then in my practice strokes, I pause at the cue ball, and I look back at that object ball again. And then I stare at that the whole way through my backstroke and my follow through. So I start my body movement, object ball, practice strokes back and forth, go back to the object ball, take my swing. I call that bookends. That's my particular eye pattern. There's some people that when they take their final practice swing, they glance back at the cue ball on their backswing and then glance back at the object ball on their forward swing. I've seen some pros do that, so I know it can't be like prohibitively bad, but they're always kind of looking back at the object ball when they swing. All right, here, this one's fun. What do we have? 3, 6, 9, 12, 14. It's like we made a ball in the break, and we have an open table, but yeah, we have an open table. So we get to choose strikes or solids, and then we get to decide if we're playing shape for a specific ball or multiple balls. So this will be it. Now we're getting into the fun stuff. It's going to take me a minute to set up, so go ahead and I'll give everybody 2 minutes.
I got to admit, everybody, I totally didn't see the 14 ball until I was asked to put the numbers on the balls. So now I'm rethinking my pattern here. All right, so what I'm currently seeing is we've got some that are saying go from the 13 to the 10. I do see a suggestion to go from the 13 to the 11 or the 12. And then Sarah Shoots Pool, who asked the question earlier, she does suggest going from the 13 to the 14. Then from the 12. Looks like you might have left off the 10 ball there, Sarah. You're saying 13, 14, or maybe that's 12, 10. Maybe since you put 13 twice, 11 and then 9. You're muted, Demetrius.
Okay, gotcha. I'm back. So I just wanted to make sure people didn't hear my balls clanking around while I was setting them up. Okay, well, everyone's had a chance to look at this, so let's kind of talk it through. So this is one where, of course, it's hard to call your entire pattern on a full rack. I like stripes, right? So everybody likes stripes. We got that far? Nobody want to start with like a bank on the 5 ball or anything? Okay. So good. So we're going to start with the 13. And then we have to kind of think about like which balls are kind of friendly. So obviously the 9 seems like a little bit of a problem ball. But to me, I don't really think about so much. It's partly is like which balls are problematic based on where they lay. But then you got to think about which balls are convenient to solve that problem. And since we have the 12, 11, and even the 14 can lead down towards the 9 in some cases, it's just not that big of a problem because we have balls that solve it. Now, this is actually a cool idea. You know, like after the break, when people are thinking about how many problem balls each group has, do me a favor and go one step further. This is just a little tip after when you're reading a full rack. Don't just look at how many problem balls each group has. Look at how many solutions to those problems each group has. So, for example, in this case, that 9 may look like a problem, but because we've got 3 balls that can really friendly lead down to the 9, it's really pretty benign. On the other hand, if the 9, if say that this was the head rail and all the balls were on the other end of the table and there was no stripe nearby to lead to that 9 and all the other stripes are on the side rails of the table, well, then that 9 is a much bigger problem because there's nothing convenient to get us on it. So it's not, I just want people to think about, it's not just about problem balls. It's about, do we have other balls that solve those problems as well? So if Solids has 3 problems, but they've got 4 friendly balls that can solve all 3 of those problems, and then Stripes only has 2 problem balls, but they're like completely isolated and nothing to help, I might still take Solids. Anyway, just something I think about. So, okay, we're going to start with a 13. And when I look at this, this 10 ball to me is tricky to get on. And the reason it's tricky to get on is because the 1-4, you know, you could tangle up and get elevated over balls or behind balls. And if you get thin on the 10, it's a hard shot to make and your cue ball is kind of coming across table and you got to deal with the 3 or the side pocket. It's just, it's, you know, if you're shooting the 10 ball from the middle of the table, it's tough and hard to control. So looking at like zones, I think about zones, like where could I be on the 12 to make and control the cue ball? It's like, well, I got a good zone for the 12. I've got a good zone for the 14. The 11 ball, yeah, it's not that big of a zone, but it's I've got balls nearby at the 9 ball. Similarly, I have balls to get me on it. The 10 ball seems to be the ball that there's just not a lot of balls that lead conveniently to the 10. The best shot, if I had to pick another ball, would be like maybe the 12 ball. If I'm out in the middle of the table, maybe I could shoot the 12 and bounce one rail across and try to get on the 10 next. But then not only is it tough to get on, where does it lead to? Boy, it leads forward, and there's nothing down on this end of the table. So I have to like bring my cue ball back. And so basically, I want to eliminate the 10 as quickly as possible. However, because of the 1-4, I don't know for sure if I come, I can't get in on a 10. And if I come too far, I can tangle up with the 1 and the 4. So this is one where I'm going to play for the 10 ball as my priority, but knowing that I have the 12 and 14 as backups. And then if I don't get on the 10 immediately, then I'm going to have to try to pivot over and work my way back to the 10, but I'm probably losing some run out equity because if I land on the 10 first, I'm very high percentage to run out. If I don't get on the 10 first, it's going to turn into a little bit of an adventure. So no guarantees, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Let's see if I can make the 13. Let's start with that. So my zone, I have to get to at least, here's my zone where I'm on the 13, no, the 12 ball. So I at least have to cross this line so I have a shot. And then from here to here is like my 10 ball. This is where I'm trying to get, but then I can accept backup plans if I can't quite land there. All right, I'd say I landed as good on the 10 balls I'm ever going to land. So now I just have to kind of come back out and figure out. I don't think there's any advantage for me saving that ball for last. This 4 ball is really blocking a lot. So I think I'm going to try to get on the 14 to the 12, potentially. I've got a nice angle where I can follow to the rail and out. I don't know. I'm so good on the 12. It's tempting, but no, I'm going to make sure I follow the rail and out. Now,
Beautifully done.
I don't always dog it, guys. I don't always dog it. All right. Usually. All right. Let's look at, I hope this is fun. So I've got one more, just one more. And just like that, our time is done. I can always answer 1 or 2 more questions too if they come up. So let me pull up the last one. And here we go. Whoops. It was there. There. All right, let me see here. I think we have another situation where, no, this one we're strikes. This one we're clearly strikes. Solids is already, we've already shot some strikes. So I will mute and take a couple minutes to set these up. I'll be right back.
All right, everybody. I think we all can agree that we probably want to go ahead and start with that 10 ball since we are in position to shoot the 10 ball. The question is going to be is what ball are we going to get position on next? 13. I can't tell by the diagram. We'll see when Demetrius unmutes himself if the 13 is going to be able to pass by the 12 into the corner because otherwise it's dedicated to the side pocket. Or are we going to try to get position on the 12 for the corner? I wanted to have a little fun with this one, I'm kind of looking at something like this. Play the 10 in the corner. Probably want to try to spin my cue ball 2 rails around like this, to where once I get around here, I'm good for that 13 in the side. But I can even go all the way up to get position on this 11. If I happen to land on the 11, because then I can use the 11 to go into the corner and either come 1 rail or 2 rails out the 13. And we can see here that the 13 leads to the 12 then leads to the 8, and then the 8 goes into the corner. If I don't get position on this 11 ball, and I just have position on the 13 ball, actually erase this line, and we'll come out like this, then more than likely we'll play the 13 in the side, 12 in the corner. We'll have to play the 11. Depending upon the type of angle that we have on the 11, that maybe gives us an opportunity to maneuver to shoot the 8 in either of the corner pockets, because you heard Demetrius talk about how we don't really want to get position for the 8 in the side. But I think those are going to be the possible options. That's at least what I see. I haven't really given my 2 cents on any of these.
All right, I've got him set up. How are we sitting here?
Let's see here. I can see that we've got some 10 to the 12. We've got some 10 to the 13s. We got one that agrees with me about the 10 to the 11. And the majority I'm seeing here is 10 to the 13 is what I'm seeing for the majority. I don't know if you heard me when I was narrating to everybody. I kind of said that I would make it a priority to get on the 11, because then I can go from the 11 to the 13 to the 12, which is just a stop to get me on the 8. But if I don't get on the 11, then I still have a good angle on the 13 to go from the to go 13, 12, 11.
Yeah, I think that this is one where I think that I'm okay with one of 2 answers. If somebody said play shape for multiple balls here, we can get on the 13, the 12, or the 11, like coming 2 rails down this line. Once you get here, you're on the 12, here you're on the 13, here you're on the 11. And so if you're playing down that stretch, saying, hey, all 3 of those shots, they all work. And then the question is there a preference? And if I had a preference, it would be the 13, because if I land on the 13, it is stop. It's a stop shot out, except for a little maneuver off the 11. But it's really, really predictable and foolproof. I don't really even have to, like, the rack's over. If I get straight on the 13, I'm out. However, so that would be the one. If I was going to prioritize one, that would be the one. But then the question is, how much equity am I if I end up having to play the 12 next, getting on the 11 and having to come up for the 13? And I'd say, once in a while, I could come up on the wrong side of the 13 and end up laying the 13 and having to shoot a cut shot on the 8 from distance. Once in a while I could roll too far and have some cut on the 13 where I'm going to be rolling over to the rail or having to work my cue ball. So, and if I played, and if I come for the 11 next, once in a while when I shoot the 11 to get on the 13, to get on the 12, same story. It's like, I'm not saying I'm going to have troubles, but I still have a little bit of work to do. So I think this is one where I would lean towards playing for the 13, but I'm probably not losing much equity. So anybody that said multiple balls, I'm pretty good with that answer too. So, and by the way, guys, I was going to troll you. I forgot, Chris. You didn't remind me. At the beginning of the video, I was going to be like, all right, everybody. So here you can see, and I was going to point to this table here, which is like really, it looks like it's like glowing, like it's anyway.
Go ahead and run the table from that view.
That's right. I'd look a lot better if I ran them out there. Okay, so we're going to try to land on the 13 on the side, just because that makes it easy. But the question then becomes, what line do I have to get to at least have a good shot? And I don't want to be like shooting the 12, back cutting the 12. So once I get straight on the 12, I have a good shot at the 12. I still have a good shot at the 12 all the way until I'm on the 13. And then I've got a shot at the 11. Although there are some funny spots like over the 4, on the rail down here, whatever. So I think my reasonable lie is like from here, I've got a couple feet. So I always kind of play to my target and then try to I always figure out the line I need to get to. Let's see if I can get there. Yeah, I'm not shooting the 11. I'm not shooting the 12. So, as expected, I actually have to, I don't know what I had on the diagram on the table. I set it up to where I kind of have to rock it back just a little bit. This is. Now, because I'm a professional, I'm going to walk around the table and check my angle this time. Not falling for the old banana in the tailpipe again.
I really want to know how many of y'all caught that Beverly Hills Cop reference there.
Now, as long as I don't stun into the other corner pocket.
And he tried. He tried to.
Not even close. Okay, I hit it too low. I hit it too low. All right. So in this case, what? Oh, you guys might have noticed that the 11, 4, 8 were the same trio of balls where I could have gotten fit on the 11 and ran into the 4. I wasn't very creative setting these up. I was just throwing them out there. Okay. Those were my examples. So now, tell you what, guys, let's just do one more live. I'm going to throw the balls out and let's just do the solids. Let's do the solids from here. We're going to put the 8 ball back. Let's see here. Let's just go right to the middle of the table. And now, again, there's different ways to run this pattern, of course. But what are your guys' thoughts about the overall pattern? And is there a time during this pattern when I would want to play for multiple balls? It says bonus. And then we'll call it a wrap. I can't walk away from a pool table when there's balls on the table. It's like I already paid. Listen, I already put my $5 in DCA tokens into the damn machine. I want to get my money's worth.
All right, so we've got Duggar here that suggests doing the 1-5. Actually, Duggar, I think that's the pink 4 ball that's by the rail.
That's fine. Yeah.
So we got the 1-4, and then he says 2. You did forget a ball. Okay, so actually, let me do this for everybody. I believe this is the 1 ball. This is the 4 ball, a pink 4 ball.
It's not a matchroom set, guys. It's a pink one.
We've got the 2 ball by the corner here, and then we've got the 3 next to the 6. And this looks like this is the 7 ball down here by the corner. Do I have that correct?
Yeah.
Tim McDaniel seems to think that the 4 ball is going to be the key ball. Hey, we've got Sensei Nate Plays Pool.
My man, how's it going, Nate?
He's suggesting 1-4-7. Then, depending upon the angle on the 7, you can play for 3 balls up to a few ways. Sarah Shoots Pool wants to do the 2, 3, and the 6 first. Rack Accoutrements wants to do the 1-4-2, then 3, 6, 7, 8. Everybody's starting with the 1 ball.
I agree with that. Well, Sarah wanted to shoot the 2 though, so not everybody.
This is true. Yep, we do have 1. Lauren Keeler from Facebook says, when in doubt, treat it like rotation and go in numerical order. LOL.
I like that answer. You know what, man? That's a good answer right there. Just bank them in oddballs first. No. Okay, so here's This one, I'll tell you what, guys, I'll actually show you guys something really cool in a minute. But the way I look at this is this group of 3 balls up here, the 2, 3, 6, they kind of go together. And the problem with starting with the 2, and Sarah, this is not your fault. It's just the way the screen is. This is too much angle on the 2. If you shoot any kind of a rolling shot, your cue ball is going to be too far below the 3-6. And if you try to use backspin with this much distance and angle on my table, in order to keep your backspin, your slide, even a stun shot from that distance, you're liable to bounce way across table and end up without a shot. It's a little bit too much angle on the 2. So when we get on the 2 ball, we want to be like a lot closer to the side rail so that we can hit the 2 ball thickly enough to rock our cue ball back for the 3-6 or follow to the end rail and out. And then if we happen to land, I was even like, what happens if we land frozen on the side rail? Well, then we can have these 2 balls in the other corner. So this is one where this group of 3 goes together. And I honestly don't think it really matters too much which order we run these 3 balls in. It's just a matter of working our cue ball into this area of the table to where we can run them. So the way I would like to do that, now I could shoot the 1 and then shoot the 4 and Z across really comfortably. The 4 definitely leads up here. And then I could run these 3. The problem with that is this 7 ball is really annoying because as a key ball, the 7 ball is so low that, boy, I mean, maybe it's not so bad. I can always go high inside 3 rails around, but the 7 ball is a lot lower maybe than I'd want it to be for a key ball. I'd really have to work my cue ball to get it back. And so my thought process was to shoot the 1 and then shoot the 7 with high inside and come 3 rails to this area of the table, saving the 4 as a key ball. Shoot these 3 in any order that they want to be run, and then pivot back onto the 4. Now, the 4 is near the rail. It's not the best key ball in the world. So I could also shoot the 1, shoot the 4, then shoot the 7, and then try to deal with these. But getting the right angle on that 7 to get around for the 2, I think is pretty important. So I think I'm personally going to go 1, 7, 1, 7, and then pivot 3 rails up to here, probably the 2 next. But I always reserve the option to shoot one of these others. And then I don't really care if I go 3-6 or 6-3 as long as I make them and pivot over for the 4. So let's see how that looks. I'm a little thin, maybe, but not too bad. This is a good angle to go 3 rails. I just got to beat that side pocket, right? All right. I'm terrible, guys. I give up.
Come on, bank the 2.
Well, I don't deserve to bank the 2.
Try it again. Set it back up.
Fair enough. I don't remember exactly where the 7 was. It seems about right. It was pretty low for the key ball. And so as I look at it, I'll try it the other way too, because maybe saving that 7 ball at the end, maybe going 1-4 and coming back, and then these 3. That's I mean, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I had a different angle last time. I mean, there's not always like something stupid about it.
That looks much better.
It would almost have to. The other thing about this route is you're going to be shooting off the rail on the 8 a lot. So
very nice.
I'm coming around on this other idea, which is having done this now, I like the other pattern better. So I don't remember. I can never remember where that 7 was.
I do have a question while you're setting up for this demonstration. If you can possibly do a follow-up. I think there's a lot of us that can agree with the way that you're attempting to run these out. And then some would possibly disagree because they're not equipped with the guns that you're using, like the like the high inside 3-railer. Right. So is there a pattern example that you can come up with where there is the high inside 3-railer that you personally would use, but then there's also just another route that's just not as intimidating with the cue ball movement?
So this 7 to the 2 is a good example where a lot of people might use low outside and zigzag their cue ball with a stun shot 2 rails. The danger with that is you bring both side pockets into play. Whereas by going high inside, you're kind of coming down this line where there's just never a side pocket. And the only thing that could ever go wrong is you hit it 10 times too hard and send your cue ball to the end rail. So anyway, sorry, I'm still a little steamed I did that. But okay, so it's a really good route to learn. But again, yeah, everybody's toolbox is different. And so there's lots of ways. If the question is how do I, develop new cue ball tools, it's like, well, that's what I do. You can watch, pro players play and then see when they do something you don't know how to do. But there's all of a sudden I start having a lot of asterisks about, is there an order in which to learn these shots? And is there some shots that are so hard and so rare that it's not worth putting time into right away because it's better to work on other stuff first? Like I have strong opinions about like the order in which people develop their cue ball tools. But that's a complicated question. So for now, I would just say you have to run them out to use the tools you know how to use. So in the end, now I'm going to try to just roll forward, play this 4-ball, and zigzag my cue ball back in this area of the table for these 3 balls next, saving the 7-8 for last. Again, when I get on the 7-8, the one thing I think you're going to see, guys, is it's unlikely that I'm going to play to get straight on the 7 and draw back. More than likely, I'm going to leave myself some type of angle like I have now and use that high inside 3 rails to roll around to play the 8 in the same pocket. More than likely, there might even be some instances where I thin cut the 7 and come 1 rail with rolling outside. So we'll see exactly what angle I get. But I'd like to have a big angle on the 7 is my point. Now here, if I shoot the 2 and come back, I don't know. I feel like shooting the 6 and coming back again for the 2. But maybe, yeah, it's just the way they're sitting. It feels right. Oh, no. Well, I should have shot the 2 ball. This is tough for me, guys. I don't talk and shoot very well. Yeah. See this? Everything's tough.
Uh-oh, what are we doing?
All right.
Some Chris Melling type shot there.
I got nothing. Okay. So that's okay. I just, and then listen, guys, I actually have, based on the fact it's been 2 hours, I kind of covered what I wanted to cover. I think that's probably a good session. There is some other stuff with 8-ball patterns that's on my mind as we talk about this that has to do with how we group balls and then how we connect those groups. I think I can talk about a lot with pool. I get really excited about it, but I think that's what I wanted to talk about is in general, to just review and call it. I just want to say that, oops, did that work? Let's try again. Share screen here. In general, I would just say, I don't want you guys routinely playing for lots of balls just because it's 8-ball. That's it. I just don't want you guys to think, oh, it's 8-ball. I'll just cinch this ball and send my cue ball out in the middle of the table, and I'm sure I'll have something. I just think that's not really. It's not only is it you're losing equity because it's not crisp enough. So it's not necessarily the optimal thought process. But beyond that, you're not asking for enough from yourself. And so if you want to develop a better cue ball, the first part is you have to ask. You don't get what you don't ask for. So when you start asking to hit targets and you start bearing down and asking for a little bit more, then you're going to start, because it's almost like if somebody says, well, how do you learn cue ball? Well, learning cue ball is the answer to the question of how do I hit my target? And so if you're not even asking, how do I hit my target? you're not going to back the cue ball is the solution to a problem. How do I hit my target? And if you don't even consider that a problem, like, oh, I'll just play out to an area, I'm sure I'll be fine, then you'll never come up with the solution of the cue ball because you're not even asking the problem. You're not even posing yourself the problem. So by asking to hit targets and by thinking about this stuff and by seeing if you can't be a little bit more demanding about, do I really have to just play to a big area and see what I get? Or can I get on one ball, or can I prioritize one ball? You're going to, first of all, you're going to ask for more. I think your cue ball is going to improve just by asking for it. And secondly, as you start asking for more and hitting the priority balls and eliminating the problems sooner, I think your run-up percentage is going to go up as well. So there you go. Good.
Okay, let's see here. I'm going to try to jump back into the stream here. Let's see if this is going to work.
I can do that.
I turn this on. Is it going to let me turn it on? It's not going to let me turn it on. So I got to do some.
Well, we've got a very intimidating picture of the cue ball.
Yeah.
Looks like you're ready to break on like 17 balls.
Let's see here.
It's very small though.
I'll take just one moment to try to get back on stream. Actually, I'll tell you what. I'm going to switch to this real quick, so everybody should be able to see me. And then I'm going to actually turn this off. Hopefully it works. Actually, it's not working. Why is it not working?
While that's going on, I just want to remind everybody one more time that here, I will...
Just a second, because I don't think everybody can hear you.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
Oh, no, never mind. They can hear you. They can hear you.
Okay. I was just going to show everybody my URL one more time. MNPoolBootCamp stands for Minnesota. Oh. And I do 3 days. So if anybody wants to come work side by side and develop their cue ball tools, I mean, what I do, I figure out exactly where, I've got it. I've been doing this 4.5 years full time. I've got it down. I look at exactly how somebody plays. It's all custom one-on-one where I see how you play and I immediately know what your knowledge level is, what your skill level is. And I feel that there's 3 things that go into playing great patterns. So when it comes to cue ball controls, it takes knowledge of how these shots work and how to adjust depending on different angles and what angles are optimal and then what adjustments you make and where they lead, when you're going multiple rails. I mean, Sarah asked about breakouts. It's like, well, you've got to have a good move deck of move cards where you know which shots lead where. And so I have a set of tools that for people that don't know them, I make sure that they know which shots they can shoot, where they lead, how to adjust those shots in terms of speeds and spins, depending on what angles they've got. So they've got the knowledge of how they work, but that's no good without technique. So then I develop their technique, their stroke timing and their tip accuracy so that people can strike the cue ball in the right places with enough accuracy to execute these shots. And then the third ingredient is time. So I say there's knowledge and technique, but then it takes time to develop a comfort level with these shots and start feeling like at the first they're like trick shots. And then they start feeling like, well, I can sometimes do it, but it's testy. And then eventually you just start like, oh, I know what to do here. And so half of my 3 days is teaching, and then half of it is training where we're actually side by side working on these things. So it's like, first I make sure you have the missing links of knowledge that you need, and then the developing the technique to a higher level so they can control these shots better, and then putting in the time, drilling on this stuff and working on this stuff. So I'm not going to send you home with a syllabus where I talked about something, had you hit it once and wish you well. Like, we're going to drill it until you could do stuff you couldn't do before at a higher level. And then as we build up the cue ball, of course, then we get into patterns and we can build out more and more interesting pattern theory and the ability to link these shots together in some type of successful execution more often than not. So anyway, that's what I do. So look me up. I'd love to hear from you guys and have some fun on the table.
Okay, so I'm going to have to resort to doing something like this. Yeah, Demetrius, you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm changing the stream on the fly just so I can add myself back into the stream here. So give me just a second. And then hopefully, there we go. Now I'm in here. This is not the greatest of setups here, considering that I had to get my computer out of storage just to be able to set this stream up. So Demetrius, they can see both of us on the screen, even though you can't see me in the Zoom call. This is where we're going to pretty much wrap things up, everybody. I want to clearly thank everybody for being here. I hope everything that Demetrius talked about here made sense. I think there could be a little bit of maybe, I don't know if discomfort might be the right word, or disagreement because of what you believe you're capable of doing on the table. And if it doesn't match up with what Demetrius is able to do, that's pretty much understandable. But hopefully you understand the concept of the percentages of why he chooses the way he shoots those runouts, because of the percentages of him being able to hit those targets that he talked about. Whereas you might not be able to hit them just as much. But I think it's fair to say that that might be something that you would want to work towards. Would that be fair, Demetrius?
Yeah, in the end, everybody's going to play the percentages that work for them. And so, when I used to think some people played, strange patterns, but my thought experiment for all of you guys is, if you have a beginner that can only roll balls in with center ball, that's all they know how to do is roll balls in with center ball. And all they can do is make easy shots. They can't make anything that's frozen on the rail, 2 diamonds from the pocket. Then when they get ball in hand in an APA league, what do they want to do? They want to shoot their hanger. And all the experienced players like, well, no, you got to start with your problem ball, and you want to deal with this ball on the side because you'll never get on it again. But it's like, they can't make that ball on the side, even with ball in hand. Or if you tell them to make it and then try to why don't you just make that and spin it over there and draw it over there? It's like that they can't do that. So I used to think that some people played bad patterns, and maybe that's true. But a lot of times, I've kind of got this idea that everybody plays perfect patterns for their skill set, because everyone knows what they can do and they know what they're capable of, and they have to take the tools they have and do the best they can with them. But absolutely, then the question is, can we develop more and more tools so that we go from rolling balls with center ball to stops and stuns and follows, and then pretty soon we have our full deck of cards that we can play some poker. And so I 100% agree, Chris, but even still, of course, there's always room for, like in that last run out, there was definitely some different ways to go there. And in the end, as long as it passes the test of, I think I can do it, and all my cue ball maneuvers hit all my targets, and I'm confident I can run out. In the end, if you know you can do it, then just do it.
So this is a question for all you viewers here. If you actually really liked what you saw here, despite whether or not if you agree or disagree with the pattern play that Demetrius did, how many of y'all would want to see something like this again, but with 9-ball, or maybe even 10-ball? Or just something else to where Demetrius can have the floor and just kind of share his thoughts. Demetrius is my coach. I'm always up for allowing him to be able to advertise his business as well as show off his skills, because everything that he is showing y'all here is basically what you see me talk about when you watch me do my APA reviews or any match reviews that I might have done, and the way you see me play is all pretty much taught by him. And so far, I'm seeing a lot of consensus that they would like to see something like this again, perhaps with 9-ball, if you want to try to maybe come up with something for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I've also got an idea with what I was talking about with 8-ball runs, where you group certain balls together, but then have to figure out the ways to pivot from group to group. I've got some ideas about that I think are pretty cool. But I love 9-ball, so you don't have to twist my arm too hard. And we can definitely get into some 9-ball.
Okay, great. Because hopefully the next time that you get to see at least me, I'm going to be in a new home. Now, I'm not necessarily going to have a new home table just yet, because that could take a while before I can actually get it set up. But I'll at least hopefully be able to share the experience along the way as my new studio starts to come alive, until eventually I'm able to actually produce a video from my home. Future videos are probably more than likely going to have to come from the pool hall, maybe with some voiceover commentary, because I have to make sure that I don't capture any of the music. But from here on out, I think this is pretty much going to wrap things up. Demetrius, do you have any?
Just make sure that you have a really nice plush guest room, so that during the Texas Open, I can come on down and,
Oh, absolutely. I got to tell you right now, Demetrius, you're gonna love this new house that I'm gonna end up in. I think it's fantastic. It's got everything that I want, and especially since I'm now gonna have my pool table in the house rather than in the garage. I'm actually gonna have a garage now. So I think it's going to be great.
I think the rule is, if I get like 15 Fargo points better, I think I'm going to have to move into your garage. I think that's the rules. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Sorry, some starving pool player jokes. Never mind. Okay.
But real quick, did you already plug your website and your business? Okay.
Yeah, I beat it to death.
All right, everybody. So I want to thank everybody for being here. If you haven't done so already on your way out, please give the stream a thumbs up, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. If you're on Facebook, maybe consider sharing the stream to your Facebook profile so your friends and family can get to know me as well as my coach, Demetrius. And then, of course, share it to your favorite pool groups. Liking the stream on YouTube does help me out in the YouTube algorithm, considering that I'm not really posting a whole lot lately until I get my home table set up. But it at least allows other people to discover the stream after the fact. And so, yeah, I think that pretty much wraps things up.
And if they have any specific questions, they can email me at info@MNPoolBootCamp.com. Any questions about stuff that came up you want me to talk to you about directly, feel free to email me. Okay, good.
Absolutely. So we're going to call it a night. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.